all the middle school girls and high school girls go into Valerie's Wednesday night class. You'll be going in there today. You're going to have a speaker. So I wanted to say that before I forgot about it. How many of you know what I'm saying when I say the green? It's called the green thing or whatever. It talks about keeping the environment clean. Every now and then I find something, and as soon as I find it, I think back to me growing up, but I think about the young generation of today. They don't know 40, 50, 60 years ago how everything was, how everything went. And I do this, for one, you have no idea how much you have it made with what you have and all like this. The story goes, checking out at the store, a young cashier suggested to a much older lady that she should bring her own grocery bags because plastic bags were not good for the environment. The woman apologized to the young girl and explained, "We didn't have this green thing back in my early days." The young clerk responded, "That's our problem today. Your generation did not care enough to save our environment for future generations." Sometimes when I read stuff like this, I wish they were true, and I wish I could be standing back behind watching as this would happen. The older lady said that she was right. Our generation didn't have the green thing in its day. The older lady went on to explain, "Back then we returned milk bottles, soda bottles, and any other bottles we could to the store. The store sent them back to the plant to be washed and sterilized and refilled." I just cut this thing off. To be refilled. So they really were recycled, but we didn't have the green thing back in our day. Grocery stores bagged our groceries in brown paper bags that we reused for numerous things. Most memorable, beside household garbage bags, was the use of brown paper bags as book covers for our school books. This was to ensure that public property, the books provided for our use by the school, was not defaced by our scribblings. Then we were able to personalize our books on the brown paper bags, but too bad we didn't have the green thing back then. We walked upstairs because we didn't have an escalator in every store and office building. We walked to the grocery store and didn't climb into a 300 horsepower machine every time we had to go 2 blocks. But she was right, we didn't have the green thing in our day. Back then we washed baby diapers because we didn't have the throwaway kind. We dry our clothes on the line, not in every goblin machine burning up 220 volts. Wind and solar power really did dry our clothes back in the early days. Kids got hand-me-down clothes from their brothers or sisters, not always brand new clothing. But that young lady is right. We didn't have the green thing back in our day. Back then we had one TV or radio in the house, not a TV in every room. And the TV had a small screen the size of her handkerchief. Not the screen, but the size of the state of Montana. In the kitchen, we blended and stirred by hand because we didn't have electrical machines to do everything for us. When we packaged a fragile item to send in the mail, we used wadded up old newspapers to cushion it, not styrofoam or plastic bubble wrap. Back then, we didn't fire up an engine and burn gasoline just to cut the lawn. We used a push mower that ran on human power. We exercised by working, so we didn't need to go to the health club and run on treadmills that operated on electricity. But she's right, we didn't have the green thing back then. We drank from a fountain when we were thirsty instead of using a cup or plastic bottle every time we had a drink of water. We refilled writing pens with ink instead of buying a new pen. And we replaced a razor blade in a razor instead of throwing away the whole razor just because the blade got dull. Back then, people took the streetcar or bus, and the kids rode their bikes to school or walked instead of turning their moms into 24-hour taxi service in the family's 45,000 SUV or van, which cost what a whole house did before the green thing. We had one electrical outlet in the room, not an entire bank of sockets to power a dozen appliances. And we didn't need a computerized gadget to receive a signal beam from satellites 23,000 miles out in space in order to find the nearest burger joint. But isn't it sad the current generation moans and groans over how wasteful we old folks were just because we didn't have the green thing. And this is the part I wish I could have been there to hear. She said, "We don't like being old in the first place, so it doesn't take much to make us mad, especially from a tattooed, multi-peer smart mouth who can't make change without a cash register telling him how much." I I know it wasn't that spiritual. Y'all know I get these things every now and then, and even my generation, there's still things that we had growing up that 20 or 30, 40 years before us never had. And when I sat down one day and I talked to Ken and Dan, and I talked to Roger's daddy, to hear them talk about it, they were the happiest people in the world.
Yes, sir.
They didn't have 3/4 of what we got now, but they were a whole lot more happier, it seems, than what we are today. Brother Dave, would you pray for us?
Lord, we want to thank you for your privilege to be here again today, Lord. Pray that you'll touch each and every teacher today, Lord, that